This episode is brought to you by The Farmer's Dog, a service that delivers gently cooked, freshly made pet food straight to your door. Each balanced recipe is developed by board-certified nutritionists and clinically proven to support healthy aging. The Farmer's Dog, guided by science, driven by love. New customer? Get 50% off your first box at thefarmersdog.com/Spotify. Plus, you get free shipping.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit espolontequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
Welcome, dear guests, back into my spirit parlor. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer. It's quietly snowing outside, but inside, join me as the candles flicker, the velvet curtains sway, and let's talk about something that almost everyone experiences at some point, but very few people feel confident talking about it out loud. Signs. Signs from spirit, signs from a higher source, anything that feels more than just a coincidence. If you've ever noticed something small but strange, like a perfectly timed song, a repeating number, a symbol that won't stop showing up, and then immediately wondered if you were just looking for comfort, this episode is for you, because one of the hardest parts of experiencing signs isn't the sign itself. It's the doubt that follows, the fear of being naive, the worry that you're projecting meaning onto randomness, the quiet question of whether you're imagining something because you want it to be so true. Tonight, we're talking about signs from the other side, not to convince you, but to remind you that these experiences are far more common and far more consistent than we're often taught to believe. And before we go any further, I want to ground this conversation for a moment. You don't have to believe in spirit communication to listen to this episode. You don't have to label anything as supernatural. You don't have to suspend logic to stay curious. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. Our brains are incredibly good at noticing patterns, especially during emotional or transitional moments. And that doesn't make us foolish or weak or easily led. It makes us human. But here's where things get interesting. There's a difference between forcing meaning and recognizing repetition, between searching desperately for signs and noticing something that keeps arriving whether you want it to or not. This episode isn't about convincing you that every feather or number is a message. It's about exploring why certain experiences feel persistent, personal, and oddly well-timed. And why so many people across cultures and belief systems report them in remarkably similar ways. You're free to interpret what you hear tonight through whatever lens feels truest to you: psychological, spiritual, symbolic, or somewhere in between. Curiosity is enough. So thank you for joining me tonight for this conversation. I would love to hear what your thoughts are afterwards. And let's talk about that doubt for a minute when we're talking about signs. One of the biggest fears people have when they experience a sign is that they're falling for like a trope or something like that they're projecting meaning onto randomness because it feels comforting. But here's the thing, if these moments happened once, maybe twice, and then faded, we could easily dismiss them. But they don't. They can persist. They repeat, or they arrive with timing that feels almost meant, almost pre-thought out, predestined. It's just too perfect of a moment. And they can even show up when you're actively trying not to believe. Oh, the universe. Signs might not necessarily announce themselves loudly. They could whisper, they nudge, they wait for you to notice. And that brings us to the first form of communication. Let's talk about feathers. Feathers are one of the most talked about signs and also one of the most dismissed. Birds drop feathers all the time, people might argue. And yes, they do. And not all feathers are signs. A genuine, true sign usually has context. It appears when you're thinking of someone specific, when you've asked for reassurance, when you're at a crossroads in life and you're pondering for guidance, or when your emotions are especially open, or it can be the feather that shows up indoors or at your feet in a place where it just shouldn't be there, and again in moments that line up too perfectly to ignore. Spirits work with what's easy, what's light and easy to move, symbolic, non-threatening, and a feather says, I'm close. You're not alone. I can touch your world just lightly. And the repetition is important because one feather might be a coincidence, sure, but a pattern feels more like a conversation. Next, let's talk about numbers because this is where many people really start to question themselves. 1111, 222, 444, birthdays, anniversary numbers. You glance at the clock and it's the same number again. You see it on receipts, license plates, numbers on a gas pump, anything. And eventually, maybe you stop saying, that's weird, and start thinking, okay, I hear you. Numbers are one of the easiest tools for spirit communication because they exist everywhere. They don't require belief to function or appear before you. You don't have to believe in clocks for them to work. I guess there's a logic to that. What matters is how the number makes you feel when you see it. Does it calm you? Does it feel like a tap on the shoulder? Does it arrive right after you ask for guidance? If time and time again, a number shows up with a certain effect or result for you, that is something to pay attention to, and that is something that you can personally validate for yourself through your experiences, not what other people's opinions are about statistics and the odds of it happening. Spirit communication often bypasses logic and goes straight to recognition. Your soul recognizes it before your mind does. And let's talk about songs, words, and perfect timing. This one is deeply personal for many people. A song comes on the radio that feels impossible in its timing. Lyrics answer a question you were just thinking. A phrase repeats itself across conversations, shows, or books in a short window of time. This is meaningful repetition and meaningful timing. It's one of the strongest indicators that you're not just imagining things. There have been plenty of times where I'm looking for guidance from the universe and just wanting to have that little bit of reassurance that I'm doing the right thing. And it is amazing to me when I ask for that, when I put that out there, how random people will just say things that were really unprompted, like a compliment or encouragement when nothing in the situation was necessarily asking for them to do that. I was having a little bit of a low moment just a couple weeks ago. And my friend Tom, thank you, Tom, reached out to me and randomly he said, "You're a true shining light. Please never forget that." And Tom, I hope it's okay that I'm sharing our conversation. But that came out unprompted from him. I wasn't fishing for compliments or anything, but I didn't even say that I was having a little bit of a low period of time. And for someone to come out and just say things like that, and it might not even necessarily be from a friend. It could be from a random stranger that you meet on the street, or heck, a meme that you see that has the theme of keep going, you're on the right track. I really pay attention to that, and I find validation in it. And I do believe that the more you lean into it and the more you accept it as a response, you will get more of those responses. You absolutely will, because you're opening a conversation. It's like, are you going to answer the telephone? Are you going to continue the conversation and have it be, back and forth between the universe? I think that energetic receiving on your part and that acknowledgement really matters, and it really helps strengthen that connection. So play around with it. It's okay to have that initial reaction of dismissal. That doesn't ruin it, but do pause and take a deep breath and say, okay, thank you. I am listening. Give me more. I appreciate this so much, and feel the message that was trying to be conveyed to you. Really sit with that moment. I think it's human nature to doubt, and that's okay. You're not ruining it, but feel it. Go ahead and give yourself that moment of feeling it and being present with that sign. Okay, I've kind of gone off on a tangent. Let's get back to, we were talking about songs and lyrics and phrases. This can be a moment of singularity, like I just described with my friend Tom, or it could have meaningful repetition. It's one of the strongest indicators that you're not just imagining things. Spirits communicate through emotion, memory, and symbolism. Music carries all three of these things. When a song reminds you of someone specific, it becomes like a shared language. And when it arrives unexpectedly, when you weren't seeking it out, that is when people often feel the strongest response. Like goosebumps or tears, or just this deep knowing, that quiet inner, yes, we're still connected. Those reactions aren't accidental. Your nervous system is responding to resonance. And let's talk about dreams again. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Not all dreams are signs, but some dreams are very different. You know the ones. They're vivid, they're clear, they're emotionally solid. The person you dream of feels and acts like themselves. They don't speak in weird riddles. They don't fade or morph. Often they're calm, healthy, peaceful presence in your dreams. They may say very little. They might be like in the other room in your dream. But when you wake up, it's like you feel changed, that you had a visitation, an encounter, a connection. These dreams often come when the conscious mind is quiet enough to allow connection. And interestingly, they tend to stop once the message is delivered, which raises an important point. Signs aren't meant to keep you stuck in grief. They're meant to reassure and guide and encourage you gently back into life, or nudge you along where you should be, or at least offer a little bit of validation and support. It's something to think about. But finally, let's talk about the signs you weren't looking for. Let's talk about uninvited messages and synchronicities, the ones that arrive when you've made peace with not knowing. You might overhear a conversation that answers something private, or a stranger says exactly what you need to hear. An object, a name, or symbol keeps appearing across unrelated situations. This is synchronicity, and it's one of the hardest things to explain away because it requires no effort on your part. You weren't seeking comfort, you weren't asking for proof, and yet there it is. Spirit communication doesn't need belief to function. It needs openness. It needs our attention and us to notice. And sometimes it arrives precisely when your guard is down. So let's talk a little bit about why these signs persist. If signs were just emotional coping mechanisms, they would fade as grief softens. But many people report the opposite, that signs evolve. They deepen, they shift as the relationship changes, which suggests something important. This isn't about clinging to the past. It's about maintaining connection in a new form. Spirit doesn't scream to be believed. It repeats gently until it's acknowledged, and then it can really get stronger. If you've experienced signs like these or others and wondered if you were imagining it, if you doubted yourself for noticing patterns, if you felt comforted and then immediately embarrassed for feeling that way, let me tell you, you're not naive, you're not weak, and you're also not alone. You don't have to label these experiences. You don't have to convince anyone else about them either. Sometimes the sign isn't meant to prove anything. Sometimes it's meant to say, I'm still here, I see you, and you're doing okay. Food for thought, something to think about. I would love to hear about signs that you've received and maybe even those strong synchronicities that you just can't deny. I think that as humans, if we hear these stories together, they help strengthen us on so many different levels. So please reach out if you have a comment or a story you'd like to share. If you're interested in a downloadable offering, I'll provide that for you on my Patreon. All my Patreon offerings for the Spirit Parlor are available for $1 a month. Visit patreon.com/italktoghosts. Thank you for spending this time with me in the Spirit Parlor. And until next time, stay curious, stay open, and trust what resonates for you. Take care.
Hey there, I'm Susie, and I'm the host of Beyond the Ferns podcast. Each week, I take you beyond the headlines into the stories that linger long after the news fades. From chilling true crime and unsolved cold cases to paranormal encounters, cults, and extraordinary survival stories. It's a little bit of everything for everyone. Whether you're drawn to mysteries, fascinated by the strange and unexplained, or simply love a good story, I focus on the truth, the details, and above all, justice for the victims and survivors. So buckle up, things are about to get a little scary. Follow Beyond the Ferns wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, y'all.
Something's coming. Do you hear it? Can you see it? Trundling across the common, following the old holloways, sauntering down the lane, rocking up into the market square, laying out its wares. It reels you in with mysteries, trades with you fantastic tales, spins for you fascinating stories. Stories like the haunted pound stretcher, flying saucers, poisoners and body snatchers, haunted woodland, and the secret tunnels beneath our feet. Weird in the Wade is on its way, a podcast that explores everything that is weird, wonderful, and a little off-kilter in the town of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire. If you like your spooky stories told with a dash of historical context, or you like your history with a pinch of the paranormal, then this is the podcast for you. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to Weird in the Wade wherever you're listening now.